All right. So first off, welcome to the Mentors Military Podcast. It was Nick Goldsmith who actually connected me with you. And I'm just really curious, Mike, how is it that you know Nick in the first place? He was back on episode 275 for those who might be looking.
So I know him as Goldie, and I had the pleasure of meeting him at the Marine Corps trials in 2014, I think. It was either 13 or 14. And the Marine Corps trials are our qualifier for the Warrior Games. And what the Marine Corps does is they bring other wounded service members from different countries in to compete with us so that they can get somewhat of a similar experience. Like, besides the Royal Marines, we had the Dutch were there, the French, Colombians, the Georgians. I know I'm forgetting one, but I can't think off the top of my head what it was, who they were. Oh, the Australians were there, and I know I'm missing one because there was a group that kind of stayed all to themselves and didn't really mingle with all the other branches of service, and it was a great time, and I've made lifelong friends. Like I still talk to some of the people from Australia at least once or twice a month. Goldie, I talk to him at least 2 to 3 times a month. He gives me updates on his nonprofit and how well it's doing over there. Yeah. And then I give him updates on how I'm doing here. And before COVID hit, we were actually planning on he wanted to come and go camping in northern Michigan to see what northern Michigan looked like. Okay. And then on the flip side, me and my wife and family, we were going to go travel to England and go spend a week with him on his farm or a ranch or what. I guess it's a farm. Yeah. That's probably how he would describe it, as a farm. So that's how I met Goldie.
It kind of sucks you didn't get a chance to do that. You know, he came on the podcast and we talked a lot about what he's doing over there. One of our co-hosts, which is his name's Scott Johnson, he actually lives in Wales. They know each other quite well. Scott's been to a couple of his little adventures that he has there, over the weekend and where they camp out and do a little Bushmaster stuff and sit around the campfire and swap stories, all that kind of good stuff. So
yeah, Goldie's done some of that stuff with me because I've it's bushcraft is something that's always intrigued me, and it's like part of the allure of joining the military, right? Like being out in the field and having to survive off of your own skills. And I talk to him all the time about, hey, what's the best way for me to make a fire starter? What's the best way for me to do X, Y, and Z, and he's always got an answer. He's never not without an answer. It's amazing.
Well, it's good that I've got him on speed dial because if the end of the world ever comes and we lose anything, I know somebody I'm connected with. Him and Mike Glover of Fieldcraft Survival. Those two guys. They're in very similar industries and stuff, and it's really cool that what he's doing over there. He's making a major difference in the platform and the way in which he's going about doing it. I know he's talked about the desire to really bring that thing forward to the U.S. I'd love to see him do it because it's different than just teaching. There's a whole coach mentoring aspect to this whole thing. And,
well, I think the biggest thing that with what he does is, if he were to bring, say, Royal Marines to the States and then get a group of veterans here together with them, and for everyone to understand, look, we're thousands of miles apart and we're still dealing with the same experiences and the same trauma and the same troubles. And someone over there may deal with it differently than we do. And it may end up helping somebody, or you're just like me and Goldie. I have a friend for life now that I would have never met if it wasn't for the Marine Corps trials.
So what started you off in the Marine Corps in the first place? Was it something that you grew up in a military family, or?
So my grandfather, he's a World War II veteran, Marine Corps. He did 4 amphibious landings. 1 on Tinian, 1 on Saipan, and then 2 on Iwo Jima. What? So he lands Iwo Jima the first time, survives, miracle, right? Does his cycle, gets back to the boat. They give him his steak dinner. Soon as they're done, his unit is sent back. They're like, hey, good job. Now you got to go back again.
They sent him back and gave him a steak dinner at least before they sent him back.
Yeah, at least, that's he goes, at least I got a steak dinner out of it. Like, okay.
What stories did he share?
Well, that is the crazy part, because until you reach like the age of 18, he didn't really open up too much. Like,
sure.
He would talk to us about Semper Fi and a Spirit of Corps and all that stuff, but he really didn't go too much into World War II until like I think I was 17 years old, and I told him, I was like, hey, I'm going to join.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, well, let me tell you this story. And he was an artilleryman on 75 millimeter pack howitzers. And there were 3 batteries set up. There was 2 Marine Corps and 1 Army, of course. And the Army one ended up getting overran. And his commanding officer and the commanding officer of the other battery commanded him to lower the barrels level to the deck and start firing directly at the Japanese charging the nest.
Direct fire, yeah, instead of indirect.
Direct fire, just hammer away at him. And my grandfather's, when he died at 92, he was 6'1", 280 pounds.
Whoa.
So he is a large man with meat hooks. Like, when he would shake your hand, it would completely engulf yours. And so what he was doing was grabbing the shells, loading them with one hand, and firing the howitzer and fighting off Japanese with an E-tool in his other hand.
Dang.
So like, and
you can't make
so
this
that
up.
No, and that was like, I want to do, like, from the first story, for him telling me that story, like even before, like all the Leatherneck magazines in the house that were always there, reading all the stories and those, like the only thing I'd ever wanted to do was be a Marine. Like even in high school, when my football coaches and all that, I had some promise to play at the next level in college, but I told them, I was like, I don't care. I was like, I literally play sports to help keep my grades up so I graduate and can go into the Marine Corps. Because at the time, the Marines were only taking high school graduates.
Yeah.
So, and that was 2000 was the first time I tried going in.
First time you tried?
Yes.
So what happened?
You caught that.
Yes. Tell.
So as all great stories begin, so there I was at Parris Island, training day 30, and
So you actually made it through MEPS, everything, ASVAB, physical.
I was at the island.
You were at
Parris Island. There. I was there at Parris Island. Fox Company, platoon 2085. We started out with 105 kids. By the time I got dropped at the rifle range, we were down to 84. And I got dropped because I had no clue I was allergic to fire ants.
No way. Fire ants of all things.
Of all things, them little buggers. So
not sand fleas that are just, roaming there like crazy.
Yeah, not sand fleas, not no-see-em, like fire ants. So we're there first day of the rifle range doing our daily 7, and I get down to go to do our push-ups, and my hand was on a small hill. And I was about to move it, but I saw out of the corner of my eye the drill instructor coming up the road behind me. So I'm like,
don't you dare lift that hand.
I'm not moving.
Yeah,
I'm not moving. So do the push-ups, do all that stuff, and halfway through the push-ups, they had gotten up to about just right above the knuckle, like that bone on your wrist.
So are we talking like a swarm or just a few?
Yeah, no, probably a pretty good amount.
Okay.
But as soon as I moved, they bit me, and I shook them off and I brushed them off, and I was like, oh, just trying to get them off my hands as fast as possible so nobody noticed. And ran my 3 mile, come down, and we're in the cool down circle, and I thought something was crawling on my back. I thought I had ants on my back, and I broke rank, got out of the cooldown circle, went to my squad leader, and I pulled my shirt up. I was like, is there ants on my back? He goes, no, I don't know what's going on with your back. He grabs me. We go over to the drill instructors. They were about to just lay into us, and he just turns me around. And my one drill instructor, he's like, oh, crap. Well, expletives. And threw me over his shoulder, ran me over to the safety vehicle, threw me in the back of the safety vehicle. And at that time, I was started going into anaphylactic shock. So my throat's starting to close. Last thing I remember is them getting me to base medical, not the BAS. It was the bigger medical facility on the base, but it wasn't the hospital. So they had enough equipment there to be able to trach me and all that stuff to keep my airway open. And then I woke up like 3 days later in the hospital.
Oh, you had it bad, man. I got bit by a wasp.
100%.
I got bit by a wasp one time. Felt the same type of effect. Well, it was multiple wasps, and I told my family, I'm like, you got to get me now to the hospital. Same thing. I'm on leave down in Florida, and they rushed me off to the base and stuff. And as soon as they heard what happened, they gave me this shot, and it's just like that throat cleared up. I started breathing. I was like, what the hell is that? You know? And evidently I'm supposed to carry one of those all the time. I never do.
Yeah, I was way past the EpiPen stage. Yeah. And I woke up and bring my grandfather back to the story. They got me in the separations platoon. And all of a sudden, here come the drill instructors, like madman as usual, calling my name, screaming for me. And I stand up, they grab me, they throw me in camis. They're IPing my camis, getting all the Irish pennants off. And I'm like, what is going on? They're like, you need to see the CG. What did you do? And I'm like, only thing I had thought of, my grandfather wrote a letter. And because my grandfather was notorious, when he was upset about something, he wrote a letter to his congressman, to his senator, to anyone that would listen. He wrote a letter. And as soon as it got in front of the general, he goes, do you know an Edward Politowicz? And I go, sir, I want to apologize right now for whatever my grandfather may have written in his letter to you. I know they can be a little harsh at times. And it was. His letter was absolutely brutal to the point where the commanding general felt like he was failing me as my officer, as my commanding officer. Because my grandfather opens his opening sentences. Did the meaning of Semper Fidelis change in 20 years or 30 years, however, since the time he served? And I was like, oh my God.
I love it. But it's not good, but it's awesome.
No, but it's I mean, that's the type of man he was. He was so brutally honest that he didn't like to sugarcoat things because he didn't want to get anything lost in translation.
Sure.
And he treated everyone like that. Everyone, my cousins, in-laws, uncles, dad, like everyone. Like if you got on his bad side, which it was really hard to do, if you got there, you knew, because he didn't like to beat around the bush. He laid it out there. And luckily, I had only been on the receiving end like a couple times, but it was bad enough for me not to want to be on that ever again.
So you're standing in front of the old man, the CG of all people.
Yeah,
on the carpet. So
on the carpet.
What happened then after you told him that?
He asked me if there's anything he could do. That's how impacted my grandfather's letter was. He was trying to figure out if there's anything he could do. And I said, sir, unless you can get the Navy Med Board to change their mind on their decision of discharging me, there's nothing you can do.
So they were going to discharge you because you're allergic to fire ants.
Fire ants. Yeah, no. Because of the severity of the reaction. Not just because I was allergic, because I went in anaphylactic shock. So they felt that I was a bad enough risk to send home. But luckily, they gave me an RE3P reenlistment code, which means that as long as I got cleared by a civilian doctor, I could rejoin, which took me 10 years to do.
What? Okay, so I get it. You know, they're saying there's risk here, concern, everything else, but then they're saying, oh, but we're going to let you go. You can go see a civilian doctor,
right?
Go through the channels again, which probably they're assuming you're not going to go do and go through all that trouble. But
right.
But instead of just seeing somebody who specializes in this in the Corps or in the Navy,
right,
to say, oh, no, he's good to go. He'll be all right. You know.
So now they have since made a change in their regulations for situations like that. Because at the time, if you didn't graduate boot camp, you weren't a Marine. You weren't considered a service member. Now, if you get to training day 30, you do get VA benefits. So if I would have today's standards,
yeah,
if it would have happened to me in today's standards, I'd have been able to go to the VA, get it paid for, get all the allergy stuff done, and then get recycled back.
Okay.
That's great. It's crazy.
It is crazy. I guess you blazed the trail, though. Yeah, I mean, I
have
well, or your grandfather did
that. My grandfather definitely.
Oh, so what did you do for the 10 years in between? I mean, I know you wanted to get back, so obviously you were pushing very heavily to get back into the force. What was kind of slowing things down for you?
Money was first off, because at the time the allergy testings were really expensive, and I had just come off of my dad's insurance, so it was like $300 a shot. So I did as many shots as I could.
So you had to go through that whole, like, you know, where they poke your arm with.
Yes.
Really?
Yes. The whole thing. They had to stick me, and because fire ants is such a rare, that's why it was so expensive, because the allergy to fire ants is so rare. So I had to sit there, and they had to stab me every 3 days. I was at the allergenist getting stabbed with fire ant venom to build up a tolerance for like a couple months. And then I ran out of money and I couldn't get no more. And,
did you go out and find you some red ants and just kind of put them on your arm and make them bite you?
Well, unfortunately, in Michigan, we don't have fire ants like that.
I could import you some there.
No, I'm good. I don't want it. So after that, I went to community college. Just being a dumb kid at 19. My dad's like, "You're going to college," and I was like, "Okay, fine." And because it wasn't on my own accord, I really didn't try that hard. I got average, below average grades.
Yeah.
And then I got sick of that. And so I started working in a machine shop, going from machine shop to machine shop, trying to find work. And luckily my cousin, he works for his uncle's machine shop was pretty big. And they were building robotic platforms for a lot, like $1 million contracts. It's crazy money. So their insurance was really, really good. And at the time, my wife, was just my girlfriend then, my insurance paperwork came in, and she's reading through it, and then she starts tearing up, and I was like, "What's wrong?" She goes, "Your insurance covers allergy testing." I was like, "No way." Soon as I read that, I ran, got my card. As soon as my insurance card came in, ran to the allergenist. I was like, "I just need a test. That's all I need. Just need a test. Need a positive or a negative answer. That's it, so I can go on with my life." And it came back negative for allergies to fire ants.
Wow.
I took that. I took all my paperwork from boot camp the first time, walked in the recruiter's office.
Bam, here you
said, go. "Let's do this." He goes, "You're pretty thick. Step on the scale." And at the time I weighed 270. He goes, "Come talk to me when you're 240. I was like, "That's all I got to do. lose 30 pounds and we're going to start my paperwork. He goes, no, we'll start talking. He goes, you get down to 240, we'll start talking. And I was like, all right, cool. 3 weeks later or something like that, I come back and he's like, there's no way are you 240. I was like, all right, let me go weigh myself. Stripped down, got on the scale. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. I'm not 240. I'm 241. He's like, and he's like, okay, well, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to join. He goes, do you have a job in mind? I'm like, nope, I don't care. I don't care about my job. I was like, I just want to be a Marine. That's all I want to do. It's like a Marine's a Marine, right? Doesn't matter what your job is. He's like, you're right. He's like, we'll start your paperwork when you're 230. I was like, all right, cool. Left, come back a week later. He looks at me, he goes, how? Nope, I don't want to know. I don't want to know how you're doing this. Don't tell me. I don't want to know. Stepped on the scale. I was like 229. He's like, you really want to be a Marine? I was like, you have no idea.
41 pounds in like 5 weeks. 6
yes.
weeks. Wow.
Yes. And that day, he is like, he kept still, him and the staff NCOSC of the recruiting office were still like, why do you want to be a Marine so bad? I was like, gentlemen, do you have time? Can we go for a ride? And they're like, yeah, where do you want to go? I was like, let's go to my grandfather's and then you'll understand. And so get in the Govy, drive over to my grandfather's house, and they parked in the driveway, and like there's a door you can see where everyone usually goes in to the house. And I was like, no. We go around the front. So we go around the front door, and they're about to knock. I was like, nope, gentlemen, ring the doorbell. They ring the doorbell. It starts playing the Marines hymn. And my grandfather's like, who the hell's at my front door? And I was like, oh, it's just me, Nano. And he comes and opens the door. He goes, where'd you pick up this trash? And he's talking to me about the recruiters.
Love it.
And he's like, he starts chirping at the one at my recruiter about his haircut. He goes, your hair's a little long on the top, ain't it? And he goes, come on inside. Any Marine with my grandson's a Marine, welcome in my house. So my grandma both of them being first generation immigrants, my grandfather's Polish, my grandmother's Sicilian. She starts whipping up food. And then my grandfather tells me to go get his scrapbook from Iwo Jima, shows him pictures of Barcelona's cross on the beach and the black sands and all the pictures of him. And they just looked at each other and looked at me, and they're like, you're going in. By hell or high water, you are going in. And I was like, now you know.
Now you know.
Now you know. And that's pretty much, I ended up, in 6 months, I ended up losing 80 pounds to ship for boot camp.
Oh, wait, from that moment? From the moment that 229?
Yeah, I went from 270, I got down to, with weight fluctuation, I ended up losing like 80 pounds to leave for boot camp 6 months later.
Wow.
So like just the weight fluctuation going up of battle and like that weight loss. Because there were some times where I sprung back up to like 230, 235, and then I'd have to battle back down. But yeah, I ended up shipping at boot camp going from 279-ish to 212.
Did you know what MOS you were going into at that moment?
I did. I ended up picking combat engineer.
Okay.
My recruiter was a combat engineer, and he's like, you get to play with explosives. And I was like, cool.
Yeah.
And then he tells me, you get to lead patrols. I was like, cool. And then he shows me like the ABV, the armored breaching vehicle, and all that stuff. And I was like, I'm sold. Put me down. He goes, now you understand that it's the engineer field. You could end up driving bulldozers. I'm like, I don't care. That's a trade that can translate out into the civilian world. He goes, all right, fine. And I was lucky enough to be at 1371.
Okay. And
I left all the patrol stuff and all that out when my family was asking me, what are you going to do? I was like, I just blow stuff up. I don't know.
When you went back to Parris Island, did you happen to meet your friends, the Red Ants there? And
oh my gosh, yes, I saw them, and I told kids, I was like, stay away from them. I don't care. I told a lot of kids, I was like, I'd rather get thrashed by a drill instructor than put my hand on another one of those amp piles. And now they do a safety brief about me at boot camp.
I told you're a legend. They changed the regulation for you, you know. They have your picture. They throw it up there. Here's Michael. Let me introduce you to him. He stuck his hand and.
So yeah, it was the funniest thing. Like, it was so hard to keep my bearing when they're giving us a brief about fire ants, and I'm like, yeah, that was me. That's so crazy.
Did you autograph everything for him? The drill. That's crazy. So, what was the first installation or first duty assignment that you had?
Second CEB, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
Yeah.
I picked the East Coast because I knew California was too expensive. That was my first choice. It's like anywhere but California. California's way too expensive.
Yeah.
So that was it.
How long were you there?
I actually ended up never leaving Lejeune. I was there for my 8 years.
Wow, that's kind of rare, isn't it? I mean,
it is. Yes and no. Well, within the engineering community, so around Lejeune, you have New River Air Station, and then you have Cherry Point Air Station, which we can go to the air wing. There's billets for us. There's units for us in the air wing because we're also tasked with tarmac repair, with runway repair. Mm-hmm. So combat engineers are like, they just sprinkle us around like salt on food. Like we're just used everywhere, utilized everywhere. But my tour at Lejeune was mostly because of how soon I got injured in my career in the Marine Corps. So got to Lejeune, got to my unit. We get orders. You guys are leaving for Sangin, Afghanistan in 9 months. Get ready to do your workups. I was like, okay, cool. Like, it is what it is. Got to do what we're supposed to. Like, part of the job. Where other guys, like, I still don't understand this, like, desire to constantly deploy and be away. Like, I never understood that. I just looked at it as part of the, like, deploying is just part of the job. Mm-hmm. You know. Get to Sangin. I get hooked up with 1-5 Bravo, first platoon, and everything's going good. First 5 days, I'm like, I got like 8 or 9 patrols under my belt, having led patrols in and out of the countryside, and lieutenant comes up. Hey, we want to go to this village. I was like, as a Lance Corporal, it's hard to really tell an officer, especially a new captain, ain't happening, champ. As a sergeant, I'd have had no problem doing it, but as a Lance Corporal, them railroad tracks are kind of intimidating.
Yeah.
And I was like, sir, I hate to, like, with all due respect, like, we can't go back there. We were just there yesterday. Like, there's no safe route to where you want to go. We were literally just there yesterday. And for whatever reason, the chief warrant officer, the gunner, wanted to go there. I don't know why. He wanted to go on a patrol to that spot. And it was known to be a Taliban stronghold, like Taliban flag flying, the whole 9 yards. We knew it was bad juju to go there more than once a week. Just because they would backlay all of our patrols. They would literally that night go and backlay the route we took the night before. So I was like, all right, sir, if you want to go there, you better be ready with that radio because you're going to have to call in a medevac. And that, sure enough, we're about 30 minutes into the patrol and across this open field, looks just grass, like a grass field, like a regular grass field with little sticks sticking out of it. And halfway through the patrol, somebody steps on an IED. Luckily, it low-deaded. The only thing that popped was the blasting cap. and it was buried so deep that the dirt just pushed up and then went back down on top of it. And so I set up the front security, get everybody in place, get the belt feds where they needed to be to have good cordon. And then I start coming back because they literally called me back. They had another Marine in the back of the patrol with a metal detector that could have swept another path around, but they're like, get the engineer back here to lead us through this field. And I was like, and I looked at the A// too. I was like, can you make sure he wants me to go back there? He goes, hey, sir, you came in broken and unclear. He's like, shut the hell up and tell the engineer to get back here. And he's like, I think you heard that pretty clear. I was like, yeah, that was clear.
Yeah.
So I grabbed my my security, my because they gave us a designated marksman to walk with us. And usually the dispersion was like, he was usually 5 meters behind me.
Yeah.
And we got to the edge of the field, and I was like, man, just give me another 10 meters, dude. He's like, so 15? I was like, we're pretty safe. I'm like, everyone's spread out. Just give me like 15 meters and just try and step where I step. Okay. And he's like, okay. And telling that dude to get back another 10 meters saved his life, because he would have been right at the edge of the overpressure, and that would have been obliterated him pretty much. I was on top of the IED when it went off, and luckily for me, it low deaded, but it was a 105 packed with HME.
Holy
and
cow.
I took the top of the shell to my forearm, and then I went flying. Everything went black, and I went flying through the air, landed on my head and neck, and I came to, and I did my own self-check, laid there and made sure I didn't move out of my space. Just laid there, checked my chest, made sure that there was no blood. Then I checked my legs, and then checked my arm, and then I checked this arm. And as soon as I got to here, I could just see like my skin was flopped open and blood was just pouring down my arm. And thank to my medics being a pain in the ass in Lejeune and making us do tourniquet drills all the time. Put my own tourniquet on before anyone could even get to me. And then everything went black. The last thing like I can see is one of the lieutenants in the patrol had a Mark 32 grenade launcher, and he stood over the top of me, and he was just letting loose with that thing. And like that was like the last thing I remember. And then I woke up 14 hours later on Bastion in an all Afghani ward, because I wasn't severe enough injury to go into a normal hospital bed. So they just stuck me in this Afghani ward, and I come to, and all I'm looking at is Afghani faces. I was the only American coalition force. What you say?
Stuck in the Twilight Zone? Or I mean, like,
it was the craziest thing ever. It was the middle of the night. I just started cussing up a storm, and here comes a British medic around the corner. Hey, you're okay? I'm like, I'm not okay. I can't see my hand. What's going on with this? Like, who are you? Where am I? And he's like, you're on Bastion. You're fine. You're fine. Finally, I calm down, and he's like, would you like to use a sat phone? I was like, sure, yeah, I'd like to use a sat phone. And I got in a wheelchair, wheeled myself outside, and called my wife from a sat phone. And she's like, hello? I'm like, hey, what's up? She goes, it's a little late there. Shouldn't you be asleep? I was like, she goes, did you get blown up? And I was like, yep. And like I could hear her start to like get emotional and start to cry and all that stuff. And I go, hey, but it's okay. We can still have kids. She goes, you're such an idiot. And then I was on Leatherneck for I think a couple more weeks, and then I got sent to Landstuhl, and then from Landstuhl back to Lejeune. That was my first deployment.
That was
my only deployment.
Wow. And so there was no actual damage to the nerves or anything like that?
I had to have 4 surgeries on my wrist, and I'm probably eventually I'll have to have a 5th. They took 5 millimeters of bone out of my ulna and then put a plate in that, and then had to reconstruct the ligaments in my wrist.
Okay.
But I mean, outside of that, typical TBI, PTSD stuff.
Oh yeah, I could only imagine.
They found 6 lesions on my brain, and it's crazy. It's crazy to think like how much the human body can endure.
Well, especially when it relates to like traumatic brain injury. We've done a couple of episodes on the topic, and about the blast and the effects that it really has on your brain. I mean, even shock waves, and then you have second and third waves, and it's just the amount of pressure that goes, in that type of situation. That's, I mean, what have they been able to treat, or have you gone through any type of treatments for traumatic brain injury, or like stomach ganglion block or anything like that?
I haven't had to do anything like that, or they haven't got me that far. The best treatment I had, I'd have to say, was at the National Intrepid Center of Excellence in Bethesda. It's also known as NICO. It was like a 30-day outpatient treatment facility. They were linked up with Brown University and Johns Hopkins in Maryland. And they put you through the ringer for testing, and that's how they found the lesions, because they put me in a functional MRI, and it was my therapist, my psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever one it is. She was the one who suggested it. She goes, I think you're a good candidate for this NICO place, because there's things we need to figure out, because you should be progressing more than you are compared to other cases I've seen. Like, you should go, like, you're doing things like a normal person, but for whatever reason, you have hurdles I haven't seen yet. And so she got me there, and to this day, her and I still communicate, and she still checks up on me. She's out in Texas now. I think she's still out in Texas. But our first session, she goes, I'm a non-prescribing doctor. I was like, yeah, good, because all my buddies that are on meds are zombies, and I don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
She goes, okay, so just so you know, this treatment's going to suck. And I was like, we're just going to talk about my emotions. She goes, yeah, that's all we're going to do. And I was like, okay. And she was not kidding. Exposure therapy is really brutal. It is not fun to go through exposure therapy. And there was a couple of sessions where she called me on my stuff and was like, hey, let's go on a field trip up to Bethesda to see your buddies that are missing limbs. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'm good. She's like, oh, you're done? Okay, glad to see you're back. I'm like, yeah, that puts me in check real quick.
Yep. That dose of reality, I guess, Yeah,
well, it slaps you right in the face.
So any other type of therapy or anything that you ended up going through?
I'm actually trying to get into therapy right now with the VA. I thought the VA nightmares were just like stories of just like ones and twos, because I was handled pretty well in the VA down in North Carolina, but once I got to Detroit and those two systems don't link up, it's been a nightmare. Like, I've had doctors get changed on me without any notification, can't get medication, gotta run, you need to run this blood test, and this blood test again so you can get your refill of your prescription. I'm like, are you kidding me? I've been on the same stuff for like 8 years now. You're going to change it up on me? Like, this is what I've been taking for the 7 of my 8 years in the Marine Corps, and you're going to tell me, no, you can't have it? Like, yeah. It's crazy.
I don't know what all the issues are. There just seems to be a number of them.
Our staffing is horrible in Detroit. Yeah. And then And then because I live within 30 miles of the city of the Detroit VA Center, I have to drive down to Detroit instead of going up into the sticks where like I know other people have gone to, other veterans have gone to a different facility. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is crazy.
Yeah. Wow, that sucks, man. So you end up spending the rest of your time in Lejeune after you came back from deployment, never went
Correct.
back again, and then got out. So because that was very early in your career then.
That was my first deployment, 9 months into my first contract.
And it's kind of interesting that you didn't go back. But was it because you were non-deployable at that point, or?
So once I got medevac back to stateside, I ended up getting sent to Wounded Warrior Battalion East on Lejeune, and I spent 2 years in recovery there. And I fought to actually return to full duty. So it wasn't that I was non-deployable. It's that officers weren't willing to take a risk on deploying me.
Gotcha.
Actually, my first, I was with the MARSOC, Marine Corps Special Operations Support Group. And I had worked my way into that, like found a program at Wounded Warrior Battalion where I could intern at MARSOC. And then that ended up turning into me getting orders to MARSOC Support Group. Pardon me. And I wanted to deploy. I'm like, I wanted to be a Raider. Like, first thing first was, okay, join the Marine Corps. Being an engineer is cool. Ooh, this Raider life is what I want to do next. And so I was like, when I found the opportunity to intern at MARSOC, I was like, I'm going. Same thing. Went there, doing everything I was supposed to. Networking my butt off to try and get to support group so I could deploy with, I think it was like 1st Raider Battalion was the next MARSOC team going out. And so comes down to it, and Lieutenant Colonel calls me in her office. It's like, good afternoon, ma'am. How you doing? Is there something I can help you with? She goes, I wanted to tell you face to face that you're not going on the deployment. You're not going to do the workup. I was like, ma'am, I don't understand why. I'm a corporal. I'm one of the senior engineers here. Why are you sending 2 boot lance corporals straight out of the schoolhouse on this deployment where at least they should have me or one of the other sergeants? She goes, well, the other 2 sergeants are about to EAS. It's like, I'm not EASing for another 2 years. She goes, I'm not taking the risk of sending you back to Afghanistan when you just got off of 3 periods of limited duty for traumatic brain injury, because I know what you're going to do. I go, what do you mean you know what I'm going to do? She goes, I know damn well, son, that you're going to go on a patrol. You're going to try and help out the teams as much as possible. You're going to do everything in your power to make sure they are successful in their missions. I was like, well, that's my job, right?
Right.
And she goes, that is your job. But you know what? I need you to stay back here and train the new engineers coming in to go do that job. I was like, she goes, and any officer worth their salt of rank will not deploy you. She's like, it's not going to happen. She's like, if an officer deploys you, it's because they can't find or utilize you in a way that protects you from you. She goes, that's what you need. She goes, you need somebody to protect you from you. I was like, all right. So I swallowed that hard pill of truth, and I trained my Marines as best as I could.
You know, looking back on that, you probably think, you know, in a lot of ways, she saved your life, or at least being able to hug your grandchildren, play with them, do the things that maybe.
My wife was pregnant with my son at the time, too.
Yeah.
She had just gotten pregnant.
Yeah, and you don't think about it at that age. I mean, I think all of us, when we're young, dumb, and we're ready to run through a brick wall, or, you know, no, put me in the fight, let me get back in there type of mindset, you know, because that's what we were trained to do. Yet, when you have a leader that's like that knows better, and especially long term, probably wiser. The fact that she's a lieutenant colonel means that she's been,
she's been around.
She's been around, yeah, and she's certainly been in the service, and her age probably gives her the experience and the wisdom to be able to say, "No, I'd rather save you now, and you're going to hate me for it, but in the long run, you're going to look back on this." And you probably still live with some regret that opportunity never was provided to you, but you're able to think about those things. You're able to think about, what happened to you and all those types of things. Whereas if you'd have had another blast, God knows what would have happened with another blast.
Yeah. Yep. And so from there, they had actually reorged support group to where they didn't rate combat engineers. And so I was supposed to go from MARSOC support group to the weapons training battalion, EOTG, and work with them. And trying to be a good Marine and get the lay of the land and figure out where I'm supposed to report, the day I'm supposed to report, and talk to this master sergeant. And he was like, yeah, we'll see about your orders. I was like, Roger, Master Sergeant, I check in next week. I just wanted to, come in here and put face, so you guys could see my face and all this stuff. And they're like, yeah, cool. I get back to literally the 10 minutes it took me to go from where they were to my shop. I get a phone call. Yeah, your orders have been changed to the MARSOC schoolhouse. And I was like, okay, whatever. It's just orders. It is what it is.
Grandpa called.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
What part of Semper Fi do you not understand?
That's exactly it. So I get to the MARSOC schoolhouse and the master guns, checking in with master guns, and he thought I was trying to pull some wool over his eyes, and he's like, "Where's your service uniform?" I was like, "Master guns, they don't make one big enough for me." He goes, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "It's been on special order for the last 6.5 months. And until they get enough special orders, they don't make them." He goes, "You're gotta be kidding me." He goes, he literally put his finger in my face and was like, "If you are lying to me, Marine, I'm going to run you up the flagpole." And I was like, "Master Guns, I'd never lie to you. I'll never lie to you. I would never lie to you." And sure enough, he calls up clothing and they tell him the exact same thing. And he's like, "Well, damn." And I was like, "What do you want me to do? I got a 20-inch neck, Master Guns." I don't know what to say. But so he goes, his first question goes, "What do you want to do here at the schoolhouse?" And I was like, "Besides my job, to the best of my ability?" He goes, "Yes, besides that." I was like, "I want to become a raider. I want to go to ANS." He goes, "Well, you're in the right place because in your shop, you'll have plenty of downtime to train and to prep for ANS." And I was like, "Awesome." And he said, "Until you can run your 3 mile to where I'm satisfied with your time, you cannot apply for ANS." I was like, "Very well." So I was doing all sorts of workups and all that stuff. And my staff sergeant was reporting back to Master Guns, telling him, "Hey, he's doing this, 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 and this. He's improving here, here, and here." So Master Guns was like, "Okay, I want you to send him to the medical screening to see if he can get past that first." Sure enough, get to the medical screening.
Here comes the lieutenant colonel in the door.
They're like, "Do you have to take daily meds?" I go, Yes, I do. I have to take Synthroid every day, and then I got to take TRT once a week." They go, "Disqualified." It's like, damn. What? They're like, "Unless you can get a doctor to say you don't have to take those things, you are disqualified. You cannot take daily meds while going to ANS." And I was like, another one. But I was like, okay, cool. Just roll with it, right? Because it's what you got to do, guys. Yeah. Semper Gumby, always got to be flexible. Can't just. I was like, all right. And I went back to my shop and worked my tail off. I finished several projects that had been on the books for years that nobody ever wanted to touch or tackle. And they're like, "Hey, Polly, come over here and we got something for you." I'm like, "What do you want?" They're like, you have to do this. I'm like, me and just two guys are like, yep, figure it out. I was like, all right, cool. And ended up getting awarded a Navy Commendation Medal for a couple of my efforts. And then it just word spread. If you want anything done, call up the schoolhouse engineers. They'll take care of it.
That's good that you kind of carved out just a different role. I mean, you had to like roll with the punches as to what was going on, but I still think like, again, as bad as it was, long-term wise, it was a great decision.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of like, I had to working with my therapist. She's like, so what you can't go to A&S. You can't be a Raider. So now what?
Yeah.
What do you do now?
Not the end of your life. Yeah.
I go, well, I'm still at the schoolhouse. I'm still directly involved in the pipeline. I'm still directly involved with their training protocols. I'm still directly involved with helping the Raider teams get better. So, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
This is what the support element is. Even if you're not a Raider, you support the Raiders so they can do their job. And I worked my tail off so hard for the Raiders, and like, I don't care. There were people that like would call me a Raider bunny and all this stuff, because if they called, I answered and I went running, because that's how I viewed my job, was to support them no matter what. And I did, grind and grift with,
I can still got you.
I had some issues with non-Raider type staff NCOs that thought the Raiders were just a bunch of prima donnas and pretty boys. But I looked at them as, if they didn't have the attitudes they did, they'd be no good at their job. So it is what it is, man. Like, and I got along well enough with them all that they like would go to bat for me over anyone else. There was one incident where me and my staff NCO, my staff sergeant, we were getting into it hot and heavy and like screaming back and forth at each other. And one of the Raiders, one of the staff sergeants sees it, walks up to the shop and grabs me and pulls me away. And he goes, "Do not ruin your career for that asshole." Pardon my language, but that's exactly, grab me, look me in the eye, and do not ruin your career for that asshole. He goes, "If you get that heated, you know where my office is. Go and sit down and cool off." And sure enough, like 20 minutes later, the mass sergeant that was in charge of the section we supported called down. And I see the staff sergeant go walk up to the head shed to the main building. And about an hour and a half later, comes back. And he goes, "I've never had a junior Marine get me in so much trouble, and I can't do anything." I go, "What do you mean, Staff Sergeant?" He goes, "I don't know what you do around here that makes you untouchable." I was like, I don't get that. I don't get, why would you say that to me? I don't understand. What makes me, I'm not untouchable. He goes, "From me, you are. I can't do nothing to you." He's like, "You are so scrutinized. You are so watched over. You are so many people look out for you." He goes, "There's nothing I can do. I can't NJP you. I can't write you up." He goes, "Your negative remark." He's like, "There's nothing I can do." I was like, "Well, Staff Sergeant, I put out. That's all I can tell you." And he's like, it was disgruntled. Like our relationship, that was the worst relationship I had with a staff NCO my entire 8 years. Everyone else, I never had any problems except for that one.
There's always one.
Always one. There's always one.
And with this sad part about it is that you not only meet them in service, you meet them out of service as well. They're everywhere. Yeah. There's always that one. You're gonna run across.
Always that one. There's always that one guy. But you know what? That experience in the Marine Corps has definitely taught me how to have separate a professional and personal relationship with people I'm working with.
Yeah. Well, it taught you too the idea of probably hard work pays off too. You know, I mean, you weren't doing anything. Again, you know, they may have been calling you a Raider bunny and the whole thing, but the way that those guys saw it was that you're doing more than the average Marine that they would see who is not a Raider, perhaps, and they saw you more as one of their own, and that's all you asked for, is to gain respect, and that's what they were giving you, was that respect. And everybody else is probably jealous of it, you know? And I could see that. But
I mean, I coach, I'm the varsity lacrosse coach at a local high school.
I was going to ask you what you do now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a full-time student and I'm the varsity lacrosse coach, and I just this past 2 weeks ago was brought up to varsity football to be O-line coach, offensive line coach. But for lacrosse, like, our mascot is the tar, which is a sailor, and there's no like real definition of it, but to help motivate the kids and to be proud of being a tar, I'm like, a tar is mercenary. Like, it is a sailor for hire. It's somebody, the best of the best of the best. That's what a tar is. And I called up one of the operators, and I was like, hey man, I would love, if I could, with your guys' permission, fly your colors. And I was like, can you please I just don't want to go off your word. Can you talk to some of the other guys and like give if you guys feel like I'm deserving of being able to fly your colors, I would love it. If not, it is what it is, and I understand. I'm not one of you. About an hour and a half later, he goes, I called up the SOTC. I called up the all the boys from SOTC too. You got a green light, kid. Do it. Run it up. Do what you got to do. And so, like, I was like so shocked and like so emotional. Like, I was like on the phone, like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And he's like, shut up, bro. Just do the colors proud, man. That's all we ask. That's all we ask, is you do the colors proud. And I was like, all right. But the kids haven't earned it yet. They haven't earned a fly the Raider flag. I was going to say, do they know what it stands for? You know, what it represents? I've given them bits and pieces, and I've showed them the Raider flag, and I've showed them the Raider patch, and I've given them a little bit of the history of the Raiders going back to World War II. And they know my story. And this is crazy. Kids are crazy. When they want to know stuff about somebody, they go and find out.
They'll research, yeah.
Yeah, so they were so it was like my second or third week coaching lacrosse as an assistant. And all of a sudden I like hear kids that are standing around like the whispers. What are y'all talking about? And they're like, Coach, so is it true you got blown up? I'm like, yes. What are you guys talking about? They're like, well, so-and-so Googled your name and found your story online and saw all these pictures of you in uniform. I was like, some of the stories are true. Some of the stories are embellished a little. What do you want to know? And so I told them everything. And I didn't sugarcoat it. And I used my story, as this show's mentors for military. I use my story to mentor my high school kids.
Yep. That's what it's all about.
And a lot of it doesn't work for all of them. And I get that, you know, kids that are in situations where they're well-to-do, where life isn't that hard. It doesn't really affect them the same way as it does a kid who's, you know, doesn't know what him and his mom are going to eat that night, or if his mom's car is going to start in the next morning.
Yeah.
So that's how I use my story. And I've had a lot of parents come up to me and they're like, you wouldn't believe the change that you've instilled in our kid. And I was like, ma'am, you know what? You guys put the building blocks there. I'm just another tool. Like, you guys as parents are the reason your kid's doing X, Y, and Z. I'm just a beacon for them to look towards, for them to use those things that you had already given them.
As a parent, though, I think you probably recognize that you can teach your kids and tell them all kinds of different things, but somebody else will say the same exact words and they'll listen to that. So, so you're right. They probably did lay some of the foundation, but they're going to get what you say is going to be more impactful. You know?
But it helps though that the community I'm coaching in is a really down to earth, like grassroots community. Like it's very mixed economically. There's definitely the poorest of poor, and there's definitely those that are very well to do. And to see that melting pot of a community, that isn't a boundary between everyone. Like it is in other areas. I also run the weight room, the strength and conditioning program. And buddy, everyone wants to be with their buddy. I don't play that game. Like I had a really bad experience in high school and elementary school and middle school with getting bullied, and I can see those signs, and like I'll tell everybody get in single file line, and then I just start counting off numbers. And they're like, "Wait, what? I'm not with I don't care you're not with that person. This is your group. Stay with your group. You don't leave your group." And it's really the older kids really doesn't bother them that much, but the younger kids, because right now we're working a lot with 7th and 8th graders in the weight room for our summer strength camp, speed camp, whatever you want to call it. And when you separate those kids, they look at you like their world is ending. Like, no, that's my friend. I'm supposed. Nope, not anymore. You're over here. Yeah. But I don't know them. That's the point. You don't know them, so you're over here. Yeah. And then mixing in girls working with guys, like it's crazy how strong girls at a young age are compared to boys. Yeah. And they'll look at the disdain and disgust they have when they're out lifting a boy is hilarious, because they're just like, you can't do that? Are you kidding me? Like, oh my God, like the savagery. I'm like, what in the world? Yeah. It's awesome. I love it. I love seeing little kids compete in the school district I'm coaching in. They've settled for mediocrity. And myself and the head football coach, the head football coach was my football coach when I was a freshman in high school. And I come from a school where we have an athletic tradition across the board, all athletics. Like, oh, you're playing Chippewa Valley? Put your big boy pants on because you're going to go for a ride. You may win, but you're going to know you're in a game. And the school I'm at now, it's crazy to see a level of acceptance of mediocrity that I don't understand. Mm-hmm. And
you see it in a lot of sports and across a lot of even colleges and stuff. It's
it drives me nuts.
Yeah, it's there isn't that drive. I don't see as much, and I'm not just saying it's a generational thing. I just say today it's becoming harder to find people with the can-do attitude.
Yes, absolutely.
At all ages.
Yeah, and that is like. I actually went and visited a couple of my buddies that I met in Marsac a couple of weeks ago in Kansas City. And we were playing this game that one of the colonels had created, which is absolutely fun. It's called Speedball. And so I go out to Kansas City, and my buddy's like, I got a speedball game set up for us to play. I was like, yes, let's go do this. And he goes, but wait. I go, what do you mean, but wait? There are no rules to this game other than it's two-hand touch. Like, that is it. What do you mean, but wait? He goes, you got to dial it back a little. I was like, dial back what? He goes, your level of intensity. I was like, not a chance. Not a chance. Nope. They're getting all of it. They're getting all of it. And he's like, all right, somebody better have a video camera ready. And it was just a really, really great time, but it feeds back to that not having a can-do attitude. People not wanting to ramp it up and get intense and have that level of competition and wanna, I don't know. It's weird. Just to push the limits, to see where your limits are and see how far you can push them.
And most people don't know what their limits are anyway. They think they know what their limits are, but to your point, they don't push it far enough to see just how far that goes.
Right. And that's why I really love the weight room, because your limits in the weight room can be pushed so much further than you think. Especially my favorite exercises are squats and deadlifts. Just because when you're squatting and you got 90% of your 1 rep max on the bar, and it feels like the world's coming down on you, and you don't know if you can stand up once you get down to the bottom of the squat, and then you stand up, and like that feeling of accomplishment of squatting that weight, to me that is just as therapeutic as spending an hour speaking with a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Because it's the weight of the world lifted off your shoulders. Something you didn't think you can do, you totally did.
I could totally see you as a strength coach, and as a coach in general, but definitely as a strength coach. To the voice, the way it's coming across, I mean, like big energy. Yeah. Definitely.
It's funny. It's funny you say that, because we were talking about a play that we wanted to put in our playbook today with the offensive lineman. And it was a play I ran in high school. And the 77-year-old head offensive line coach is talking about this play. I'm getting the tingles, and my high school kids, my high school kids are sitting there like, oh, just another day. And then they run through it, and then I lose it. I was like, what are you doing? This is the play of all plays. This is the holy grail. You should be foaming at the mouth like a rabid dog when this play is called. Like there should, like, every ounce of energy, muscle fiber, skin, like your nerves should just be electrified. Oh, 86. Oh, yes. You should literally line up on the line, point to the guy you're about to obliterate, and I'm coming for you, bro. Coming. They're looking at me like I'm crazy, which I probably looked crazy. But some of the kids afterwards, they're like, Coach, but don't I want to be slick about it? I'm like, who cares? Who cares? That is the mental advantage, that you believe in yourself so much that it doesn't matter who is at the end of the line or who you have to pull and block. It's self-belief. You have to believe in yourself, in your abilities, in your strength, in your preparation, that you can hit that kid, put him on his back, 10 toes are facing the sky, and we're scoring a touchdown. No matter who's I don't care if it's a defensive end Purdue. You tattoo that guy with every being you got. You may win, you may lose, but you never change your mental attitude. And they're just eyes, deer in headlights. And then the 77-year-old coach, he's
getting fired up.
Yeah, he's getting all riled up. Let's go. But it's that's why I love coaching, because like I can get to kids at a point in their age and a point in their development where they're unsure of themselves, and all it takes, for me, it was my grandfather. For me, it was my grandfather was, you can. There is no you can't. You can. And he did it in a way where there was no negative feeling coming out of it. Where there is, like, sometimes when people are trying to tell you you can, there you have that negative connotation that comes off, or that negative aura that comes off. But I'm at the point with these kids where it's like, you can do anything. if I can walk away from being blown up from 105 millimeter artillery shell, spend 2 years in recovery, teach myself how to run, walk, and lift again, and be a Marine again, you can have the ability to smoke check some other high school kid playing football. There's nothing that you can't do. And this is why Nick Goldie and I have such a great bond, is because when we met, he was at a spot where he needed a little help. It was a little dark for him still. And he wasn't out of the woods yet. He was peering, he was coming to the hedgerow, but he wasn't sure how to step out. And my level of energy helped him realize I can. So yeah, it's
powerful, man.
That's where the story goes.
And sometimes that's all we need, is to have somebody that's there that gives us back and instills back in us that confidence that, hey, drive on, lift your head up, keep charging.
And I look, it's kind of cliche, but one of the military leaders I look up to for my motivations, Jocko Willink. Like I read my son his story, The Way of the Warrior Kid, and now my son every morning is doing push-ups and air squats.
He's not taking black and white pictures of his watch at 4:30 in the morning, is he?
No, but he's up early enough. My wife stays up. He's up early enough to where
or of the sweat and a black and white photo on the concrete,
right.
On his Instagram
the sweat
post.
Angel, the sweat angel. But that's everyone, like that's someone who I look up to within the military. And then like the Raiders that I worked with, like to see where they're at. Like the one guy I still talk to almost on a daily basis, if not every other day, is Cody Alford. He just started his own company, We Defy the Norm. Mm-hmm. And the message he has for
Marsac guy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's one of the OGs. He's an original. He's came from Force Recon. He was when they first stood up MARSOC. Because he was also a huge dude when he served in the Marine Corps. He was a huge dude, and he's
still pretty solid now.
Oh yeah,
the photos I see. Never met him.
He's pretty stout. But he's somebody that was an inspiration to me, and he saw me working my tail off in the Stone Bay gym where MARSOC's at. He saw me working my butt off and was like, good on you, kid. Good on you for not allowing to conform to, you're 6 foot, you have to be 202 pounds. Good on you for not being afraid to have to go into weigh-ins and know that you're going to have to get taped. Mm-hmm. Good on you for trying to set a new standard. And there are so many people within my career in the Marine Corps that I have to give so much credit to for being mentors to me.
Mike, I appreciate you coming on the Mentors Military podcast, and more importantly, I'm thankful for Goldie, for Nick to refer me to you so that I can get this opportunity to talk with you about your story. I really look forward to hearing more about how you're coaching and mentoring those kids out there, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and molding them into the great human beings that we want them to be. To where they can survive out there. It's not going to be an easy world as they continue on.
No, it's not.
Yeah, but really appreciate your time, Mike. Wish you nothing but the best. Thank you.
Likewise. This is awesome. Thank you for having me on. This is a great experience. And, it's therapeutic being able to tell my story. As hard as it was in the beginning, now I see its purpose.